There we go, lovely, thank you. So welcome all to this Subject Overview and Scrutiny Committee 2, which is being convened as a hybrid meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed subsequently. Everyone participating in the meeting will be accessing it either from the Council Chamber, Civic Officers, Angel Street, Bridgend, or from remote locations. Should I, as the Chair, experience any technical difficulties during the meeting, Councillor Amanda Williams will step in and take over temporarily as the Chair in my absence. Please can I ask everyone to ensure that mobile phones are switched off or switched to silent mode. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda, and I will ask the officers to present a summary of the key points. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their cameras on at that point, but I would ask that with the exception of myself as chairperson, at all other times you keep your cameras and your microphones switched off, as this will help to minimise any background noise and interference. Whether attending in the chamber or remotely, if any members or officers wish to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen at the top right hand side of the Microsoft Teams window, and I will come to you in order that I receive the request. If you're in the chamber, please switch on the microphone on your desk and speak clearly into the microphone to allow those who are remote to hear you clearly. Please lower your hand once you've finished speaking. The instant messaging chat button has been disabled for this meeting. Please do not use your microphone until I invite you to do so. Officers from Scrutiny will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout its duration, and where necessary will mute those not being used. I'll ask officers to introduce themselves when I invite them to speak and speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use. I'll now proceed to the agenda. So, item 1, apologies for absence. I'll now ask the Scrutiny Officer to announce the apologies for absence received.
Thank you, Chair. I have received apologies for absence from Councillor Ross Penhill-Thomas.
Thank you. I think Councillor Davis also said that he may need to leave early as well, so we'll note that. And that's acceptable, so that's fine.
Thanks, Chair.
No worries, Councillor Davis. Item number 2, declarations of interest. If any member has an interest to declare in any matter on the agenda, please click the raise hand icon and I will come to you in turn for you to declare your interest. Hello, Claire.
I'm not a member, Chair, but as a senior officer, I wish to declare an interest in the item around adult social care pressures because it concerns domiciliary care, and I've got a close family member who's in receipt of domiciliary care in Bridgend County Borough.
Not a problem, we'll make a note. Thank you. Anyone else? Lovely. Moving on. Item number 3, adult social care pressure areas. I'll ask the Corporate Director for Social Services and Wellbeing, Head of Adult Social Care, to present the report. I will then call upon the members who indicate they wish to speak by clicking the raise hand icon in turn. Thank you. Claire.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I'll just give some very brief introductory remarks and then I'll hand over to Jackie Davis, the Head of Adult Social Care, to take you through the report. Just in terms of my introductory remarks, first of all, I'd like to introduce colleagues from Adult Social Care to the committee this morning. Jackie Davis, who's the Head of Adult Social Care, who I just mentioned, Carmel Donovan, who's our Professional Social Work Lead in Adult Services. Michelle King will be present, who's an Integrated Services, Community Services Manager, who works on behalf of the Health Board and the local authority to manage services at the interface between hospital and community. And also online for us this morning as part of the hybrid meeting is Vicky Wallace, who's the Deputy Director of Partnership and planning with Cwmtaf Magana University Health Board, recognising the importance of the relationship with the Health Board in these service areas. So just really briefly, in terms of Bridgend, there is a very strong history of integrated working between health and social care, and this has been recognised as being a real strength over the years by Care Inspectorate Wales and in reports and reviews of our arrangements here in the county borough. I think, as everybody knows, that the last 3 years almost have been unprecedented for the health and social care system in terms of managing the COVID pandemic, and I would say now the impact of the COVID pandemic and those extended period of lockdowns on people and the needs of people that we're working with. A perfect storm, I would suggest, then, in terms of aligned pressures in terms of workforce across the whole health and social care sector. And those pressures really have been evident in our adult services for some time, but really, were heightened over the Christmas and the New Year period. We saw those pressures played out in the media across the whole of Wales and indeed all nations of the United Kingdom, but particularly for us here in Bridgend. That led us to escalate the pressures in adult services onto our corporate risk register. And at the recent Governance and Audit Committee, we highlighted that there was going to be a detailed scrutiny around the pressures, the issues, and particularly our response to those by this scrutiny committee. So with that preamble, I'll hand over to Jackie to take you through the detail of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Jackie, sorry, do you want to press your button when you talk as well onto the microphone? So if you pull your microphone up, and it's just behind. There we go.
I've been in the chamber to speak.
No problem.
Okay, thank you everybody. And so today I'm going to just take you through some of the core details within the report, if that's okay. Yeah. So the purpose of the report is to detail the current service pressures being experienced in adult social care. We'll describe some of the actions that we're taking and how we're working across health and social care to manage the overall situation. So just to note that while there are a number of adult service pressures areas, this report specifically focuses on two main areas. That's our support at home, domiciliary services, and our social work services. So the background of this report describes our integration journey that Claire's just referenced really. But all of our approaches over the years, since 2012 actually, have been based on intervening early to ensure that people receive timely responses and that are proportionate to their needs, risks, and it's about promoting people's independence. And a number of members yesterday attended the training, and we did talk about that in some detail about our legal responsibilities, but actually how we're trying to do that in our day-to-day business really. So the focus of our integrated services is always about keeping people independent, trying to enable them, keep them resilient, and so that they can continue to live in their communities. So as Claire said, prior to the pandemic, we could evidence that our success at implementing that integration journey, and actually it was something that sustained us through the pandemic, particularly in the early days. And that whole system approach really about delivering our services, working alongside our health professionals in our integrated services and wrapping services around individual, particularly stood us in good stead in the early part of that really. So 3.4 and 3.5 of the report actually describes some of our services in terms of our short-term services and our longer-term services. But having safe and flexible, effective domiciliary services really is the foundation of the whole health and social care system really. And it's been an essential part of our strategy for a number of years about supporting people to remain independent. And I think as a service, post-pandemic and post the pandemic, really, I don't think we fully understand the impact that that's had on our populations, and we're trying to respond in as a flexible way as we can. But I am going to go into now some of our demand and capacity reasons why we're unable to meet the current pressure in our system, really. There are lots of reasons. And the background describes that really, but 3.7 particularly describes an extract that came from Welsh Government around the rehabilitation framework, and that really was a tool really to help us try and plan our way really, around how we to anticipate the increased demand really. So it talks about four main areas really: those people recovering from COVID, those people that paused and had, and their urgent routine interventions didn't happen in the way that they would have done pre that. Those that avoided accessing services, but also those individuals that were socially isolated, shielded, and changed their lifestyles in that potentially had a detrimental effect to their health and well-being, really. So as I said, really, this service, we believe, is the foundation of the whole service, and that, Social Care Wales back last year actually did some engagement with 22 authorities and a lot of providers that commission services, and there was a 35% vacancy rate across Wales. So people coming into the service had tailed off at that point, really, and that's when a number of authorities across Wales started to experience significant pressure, really. And as Claire said, there's a lot of media attention, both nationally, regionally and locally, and there are pinch points in the year, particularly around winter. January this year was a particularly difficult time for us, really. So we are seeing increases in demand, and then the demographic statistics are shown in the report, and actually is something that we're going to have to be planning for a significant amount of time, really. By 2028, people aged over 5 will increase by 17%. But actually, by 2035, that percentage is 53% as well, really. So what we are seeing is that there's an insufficient capacity to meet our demand, and that's around our workforce. We need workforce. We've had difficulties in recruiting, and actually we need to think about retaining sufficient levels of our qualified staff. We have experienced high sickness levels and high vacancies in our in-house service, as well as our independent providers are experiencing the same, really. So when this report was written, we had 97 individuals that were on our waiting lists for either short-term or long-term home care services. And the impact of that is the strain on the whole system, and the focus in the media and by a number of Welsh Government and other organisations is around those people that are in hospital that we're unable to discharge. So paragraph 4, the current situation, shows a table, really, that shows the hours, really. So in March 2020, just at the start of the pandemic, we were providing over 12,346 hours. In December 2022, it was down to 10,793. And that's not because we didn't have the demand, that's because we didn't have the capacity to meet the demand that was coming through, really. So as a service, we've done a number of actions, and the report then goes on to talk about some of those in some detail, really. But back in April 22, we recommissioned all of our independent domiciliary agencies, and we increased the number of providers that were on our framework. And that at the time then increased the rates of pay for those that we paid those providers. A large proportion of that linked to the real living wage. But in spite of this, it was still a significant issue for our providers, again, in their ability to attract people into the service. And some of the reasons that they quote to us really were around the rates of pay that we were paying, and the regulatory requirements for every care worker needs to be registered, and all the requirements that are, in terms of training and all those things in terms of that, really. So in July of last year, Cabinet and our Corporate Management Board received a report about a number of urgent options, and 4.5 describes those in terms of providing an extra £1 an hour, and how we're supporting our IDCs to increase their recruitment and retention processes, really. In terms of our in-house services, we've got a targeted group that's led by our corporate director, and we've done a number of things around reviewing our job descriptions. We're looking at our working patterns. We've got a market supplement application in the process, and we promote things like the staff benefits as well. And as you will know, BCBC increased the mileage rate back in the summer for all staff, which was welcomed by our staff in terms of that then. So in terms of our vacancy management and carer recruitment, we've held corporate recruitment drives. There was a jobs fair yesterday in my stag. We had the 12 jobs of Christmas. We're engaging with our colleges, and we've done a number of. We keep trying different things. So we try one job fair in one way, and then we learn from that, and we try a number of other ways. Really, we are starting to see little green shoots of people coming into the service, and we are seeing people that are going through the process in terms of that. Really, so in terms of our so a key focus, as I said, for the media and for for us knowing about our system and the business continuity that we find ourselves in at certain times are around our hospital and the flow into hospital and the flow out of hospital in terms of that. So what we did back last summer is we looked at our processes within the hospital and how our social work teams were operating. And what we did is that we implemented a new operating model, and that saw us creating a discharge hub inside the hospital. And our social workers now sit alongside and work alongside a number of professionals, discharge liaison and care and repair, and our Better Home team leaders. And there's really positive feedback from staff working in that, but actually people going through that assessment process at a greater speed than pre that, really. As I said, there are pinch points in our times of year, really, in terms of business continuity, and we work alongside our local acute hospital site, which is the Princess of Wales. And we actually developed an escalation plan to match theirs, really, and that's shown in Appendix 1. So in terms of moving forward, the report then goes into some detail about the capacity deficits that we've got in our services. And in February of this month, we still had 22 employees that were off on long-term sick. I can confirm that we are all the processes in terms of managing long-term sick. We work right alongside our colleagues in HR, and we are following due process. Things to note that the majority of these individuals have got long-term conditions, and we have talked previously in scrutinies about the age of our workforce, and our workforce are fatigued, and they've been working at this for a very long time, really. I'd like to say, we are starting to see an improving position in our absence levels, and people are coming back to work. But then we do at times, so in January particularly, we had a lot of short-term sickness because people had flu and COVID as well. So we are still seeing incidences of that, really. But we are, as I say, there are some green shoots in our services. There's some smiles around some of our teams now in terms of that, really. And we have engaged with an agency, and we've got some block contract for some agency hours, which is supporting the whole system. So in terms of our social work service, so that's some of that detail, really. So in terms of our social work, because of the impact on our social work capacity, we have currently got 170 unallocated social work cases, which is an increase from a similar period the year before. We are seeing an increase in the complexity of individuals for some of the reasons that I've already outlined in that. But we have got targeted action plans, both short-term and longer terms, in terms of addressing that. So some of those actions are that everybody, we use a RAG status, red, amber, green, for individual people that are on that waiting list. We have nobody in the red category, and if people appear to be moving towards that, then the group manager will allocate that to another social work team in terms of that, really. So all of this situation we've been managing for a period of time in the service, and that is now managed under a silver and gold command. So silver command being led by the corporate director, and then the gold command by the chief exec and the leader of the council, really. So so as I said, you know, it is the subject of a lot of media attention, and but it's not just about Bridgend. You know, this is a national issue in terms of that. So, so Chair, if it's okay, I thought I would just stop there and take any questions and or any points of clarity that you need.
Thank you. That's really comprehensive, and it's quite heartening to hear of some of the changes that have been implemented, because they are starting to really make a positive impact, which is exactly where we needed to be and where we, you know, should be heading. So that's really good to hear. Right, I'm going to take members through the pages on the report. We have already had a little pre-meeting to go through, so I will take us to page 4, and Paul Davis, please. Thank you.
Yeah, good, Chair. Page 4. I'm on page 4, Chair. Let me just find it on this on the report. It mentions in 3.4 on page 4, Chair, that there's short-term services. I'm looking for the paragraph. Here we are. About halfway down there, it says, what matters to people at the time, in addition to we have developed a suite of short-term intervention services which are based on enabling and re-enabling approaches. I'm just wondering what these approaches are, Chair, and some detail on what exactly we're doing around that topic, please.
Would you like to come in? Yeah.
Thank you. Michelle King, and I manage those short-term services. So those short-term enabling services, they are multidisciplinary, so they're health and social care teams, and they provide goal-orientated rehabilitation programs. So people can receive rehabilitative services from maybe one discipline, such as an occupational therapist, or we can have multidisciplinary is really based on the person's needs. So the multidisciplinaries that are available include physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, pharmacy services, obviously social work, and social care provision. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, only quickly, are these therapies taken at home, or do they have to travel to sort of hospital for these? Where would they actually happen, all this?
So the default is at home. So we do try to help people to return home, and we'll deliver those services at home. But for people who have got care and support needs, maybe over a 24-hour period, or they may not be considered safe between calls, then we've got some bedded rehab places in our Brynnicau residential home as well, so we can work there. But we also accept referrals for people who do live in care homes, long-term care homes, and the team will go there. So wherever people consider home, really, that's where we'll go.
So they're peripatetic then, basically, but they can come in to, if they got more complex needs, they can be brought in to have the treatment in certain centres, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Chair.
So that answers your question. Yep. Councillor Davis, lovely, grand. Moving on to Councillor Amanda Williams, please.
Thank you very much. My question is on 3.6, but it does come up throughout the report on, excuse me, the demands and pressures increasing considerably for care. And the report does set out figures throughout. But what I was wondering is, there's 2 points to this. What's the current waiting time for somebody at home requiring a care package? And then also, are there any delays in discharge from hospital? And if there are, what's the average wait for people in hospital waiting for a home care package? Thanks.
Hello. Waiting times are really variable, and it's there's a lot of factors involved in terms of care capacity being available. So obviously it depends on the person's needs, whether they require support from one person or two persons, and how many times a day. But geography plays a large part as well. So capacity is obviously across the borough. So it's around where we have capacity, and if there's someone requiring 4 calls a day, 2-person care in one particular place where we've got challenges in terms of service capacity, that can lead to waits. But so it is quite variable, and it's very hard to put an average time on.
So just to add to that, really, there isn't one answer to that, really, as Michelle said. So what we do is that everybody that's on our waiting list is periodically reviewed, and as capacity is released from either our independent providers or our own in-house services, we are looking to match that person's needs with availability of carers in that area. So times of day, types of their needs and what the carer would do to support that individual, as well as the geographical thing. It's quite a mash of things all together, really, that we need to do that. Some people will get their care quite quickly, and others will need to wait longer. In terms of that, really, I can say that as of last Friday, there were 22 people that were in Princess of Wales that were waiting for a package of care. There are a number that are waiting in the community, but some of those that are waiting in the community are still in our short-term services. If you recall, I said about the flow through our system. So some of them, whilst they are on the waiting list for specific care, they may still be having something in terms of support while they wait. In addition to that, in our long-term social work team, so we've got integrated teams, not our social work teams, but those integrated teams have a number of professionals within those, and all of those professionals are deployed to support people in a different way while they wait their care package. So I just want to reassure members, really, that we know everybody on the list, we know what their circumstances are, and we're periodically checking those circumstances and reviewing that, as well as actively engaging twice a week with all our independent providers about any capacity that's released from there. So,
thank you. Amanda, does that answer your question?
It does. I have got a follow-up on that information, if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Please go ahead.
Right. Okay. Great. Thanks very much. I wondered what sort of ages are requiring this care package now. Has there been a change since COVID and we're seeing younger people? We had a very comprehensive training session yesterday by the team, and in that, I think the figure we were given was the average age of somebody going into a home was about 84, I think, from recollection. And does this mean that some of these individuals are ended up in a home because we haven't got the capacity to give them home care? And quite often these are some of our oldest residents who are requiring this care package at home. So does that have any impact on them if they're left waiting for a care package? Thanks.
Thank you, Jackie. Do you want to come back?
Yeah, so I'll start, and then Michelle might pop in as well. So a couple of things. We haven't really got an average age of people that come into our home care services. We are seeing younger people that have got eligible care and support needs, but still predominantly the majority of people are over the age of 65. Yeah. In terms of care home placements, you are correct, and I'm really pleased to you that you recalled that information from the session yesterday, that the average age of somebody going into a care home is 85. We have had to make a number of interim placements. We have worked with individuals, particularly those that are in a hospital bed waiting for their packages. These are usually people that are, 4 calls a day, double handler. We have made, I think we've currently got 16 people that are in interim placements. But as I said earlier, our multidisciplinary teams are working with those individuals to ensure that as care becomes available, that we move them through that system in terms of that, really. So I would say, the largest proportion are people that are older in terms of our services, but the percentage of younger people is going up, and we're seeing dementia earlier on in people's lives, and that they then become eligible for our care and support needs as well. Is that? Yeah.
Michelle, would you like to come in?
Yeah, younger people can have more complex needs as well. So it is around their complexity. There's a lot of neurodiverse conditions that come in. So as Jackie said, there's many age groups involved. The majority is over the age of 65, but it is great to have the integrated community multidisciplinary services so that we can meet the holistic needs really of all these people with complex care needs.
Thank you, Amanda, for that question. Can I bring Deputy Leader in, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. I suppose I just wanted to provide some reassurance about unscheduled care provision across the region. So Wales Audit Office are currently doing a piece of work that I'm involved in, and part of it is around what happens with people that we end up in hospital. We're not planning on delivering any care. They're not known to social services previously, so there's a big piece of work around that. But I suppose what I would also say is we have to think about this on a health board footprint. As much as I don't want to say that, being a councillor for Bridgend, we are actually involved with a health board across the regional footprint, and we need to consider the services across the board. So that is a wider discussion, and we are looking to see how we can get people more assistance in a quicker fashion, and part of that would be around surgical routine. It might be unscheduled routine appointments for people that need joint replacements, all that sort of thing, and about getting them elsewhere, because the sooner that we can have that intervention in their lives, the quicker they are to recover from it. So there's a wider piece of work that's going on as well. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Williams, I have noted that your hand is up. If you can bear with me 1 second, I'm just going to go to the Director, Claire Marchant, and then I'll bring you in. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think what I wanted to say is relation to that age profile of people now requiring care and support and to have those needs met. Councillor Gebby chairs the Regional Partnership Board. There's been a population needs assessment undertaken, which captures, I think, the impact of COVID on people's physical and mental health and well-being. And it's quite scary, really, in terms of the impact on physical health and the need and potential need for social care services. When we're looking at healthy life expectancy in this county borough as opposed to mortality rates, it's below 60 for women, 58. It's a stat which is sticking with me. And so I think as we're planning going forward and we're trying to plan our way out of a crisis, we need to make sure that we're planning those preventative services and scaling those up, which prevent people coming into the care system, as well as making sure that we've got sufficient capacity in care, because those bullet points that Jackie highlighted in her intro from the Welsh Government rehab framework, we're living with the impact of that in terms of the sort of impact on people's health, and therefore driving the need for care packages. And we've really got to focus on that very targeted prevention at the edge of statutory, as well as these care services. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Williams, can I bring you in, please?
Thank you, Chair. First, I must apologise to you, as I didn't get into Wales until late last night, and I've only had a chance to read this morning. So I'm running a little bit behind with the questions. This item is from 310, paragraph 310, is that all right? And it's about dementia rates increasing. They're increasing so quickly, and the resources needed to support them are increasing. So Could you tell me what
Sorry,
impact?
Sorry, Councillor. Can I just interrupt you there because we're jumping quite a bit ahead there.
Oh, okay.
So I believe we have a question scheduled already on that, but I will come back to you at the same time if that's okay.
Certainly,
if the question
yes.
isn't answered.
Sorry
Is that
about
okay
that.
with you? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
don't apologise. It's not a problem at all. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks.
Cheers. Councillor Davis, is that a legacy hand?
No, I'm ready to come in, Chair, on 3.7, page 5.
Well, can I just possibly bring Victoria Wallace in from the Health Board first, and then I will come to you, Councillor Davis. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really, mine was just to build on what Claire has just said. So we are very much taking a regional approach to a lot of prevention work. So we work very closely with BCBC as well as the other local authorities. And again, with what Councillor Gebby was saying around, we are looking at a regional footprint for a lot of this. So understand people's concerns around the pressures in the system. So what we are doing is trying to look at how we best use the resources as a whole across our whole patch to try to prevent the pressure building as much as possible. So we are working closely around integrated services, both within the communities. We're looking at how we increase our preventative services. So working at our public health colleagues have moved from Public Health Wales into our health board. So it really is a massive focus now on that prevention and that integration, so we can help support as much as we can in reducing these pressures. It was just really to reiterate that point from a health board perspective. Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. Right, councillors, I'm going to take us back. Councillor Williams, is that a legacy hand? If so, can you just pop it down, please?
It is. I shall pop.
Lovely. Fabulous. I thought it might be. Councillor Davis, are you wanting to move on to page 5 or was there a question?
No, I am ready for. Bring me in on page 5, please, Chair.
I was going to say,
thank you.
Are you ready and waiting? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Lovely.
yeah.
Okay. So moving on, page 5. Councillor Davis, can I bring you in, please?
Oh, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I'm looking at, Chair, 3.7. There's an extract from a report from the Welsh Government, Rehabilitation and Framework for the Community and Recovery 2020-21. The question I've got, Chair, is could they just illuminate for us how this relates to themes in the Bridgend County and what we do in the Bridgend in relation to the extracts that bullet points they provided here? Is that okay?
That's lovely. Yes, who would like to take that, please?
I can start, Chair, and I think I started to lean into this. Apologies with my previous answer. I think we received significant recovery funding from Welsh Government last financial year, not this financial year, to start to support that recovery and reset position. As the report says later on, we didn't receive that funding this year. But our recovery plan is now about rebuilding capacity, particularly in our reablement services, because we know that if people access reablement, that a very high percentage mitigate the need for any care and support at all. A lower percentage go on to having a significantly reduced care package. So for us, more people presenting with needs, the impact not just on, we talk a lot about emotional health and well-being, but the impact of physical health and well-being, of people not leaving their homes because they've been told not to, as shielding for close on a couple of years, huge. If you've got an early stage of heart failure, if you've got another chronic condition, that really exacerbates, doesn't it? So that active reablement and rehabilitation is so critical, really. For us, we've got a very good offer as well in terms of our preventative services, our prevention and wellbeing services, which are managed by Andrew Thomas in our directorate, but working very much in partnership with Halo, with Barvo, with Arwen in terms of those partnerships. And we work very closely with them to make sure they're targeted on people who are at risk of slipping in to requiring care and support. So we had our Halo advisory board the other day, and we were talking to them about really successful nurse program in terms of those who've already had a health crisis, but how can we get in sooner before the health crisis actually occurs, working with primary care about prescribing socially prescribing exercise and cultural solutions rather than, you know, a prescription and you know, people coming on to chronic disease registers and requiring. So a lot of work in this space, because I think we can see the impact on individuals and on service requirements and workforce and budgets if we don't have that really targeted preventative approach.
Lovely, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Davis?
Just quickly, just a clarification. It's I'm echoing there, Chair, for some reason.
Yep.
It's I put my thread now. It's preventative then, to prevent slippage back, you know, into the sort of more looked after sort of scenario. Then it's just a preventative measure. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and targeted prevention. So there's primary and secondary prevention. So the work I'm talking about with Halo and other partners is that primary prevention. And then once people have had that health crisis and starting to come into services, we've got to make sure they go through reablement pathways rather than going on to needing long-term care without that opportunity to get their independence back as far as possible for them. So prevention at every level, really.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Gebby?
Thank you very much, Chair. I suppose I'd like to reassure the member that we're trying to do an awful lot more preventative work out in the community. The more we can do out in the community, the more people we can start going into any sort of health provision. If we can keep somebody healthy and active in their community, going out to local community centres, ensuring that we know that they're having lunch then on a regular occasion, people are seeing them, then we have less demand on our service provision. And when we look at the increase in costs going forward, actually it's much cheaper to provide that support and assistance to people than it is for them to go into primary healthcare or even into crisis. There's a wider conversation to be had, and we need people to do more for themselves. We need communities to do more for themselves. And I do think we need to change the conversation about the expectation that people have on us. We wait for them to hit crisis point and then they'll come to us, and then we have to put in a very intensive, very costly provision for them. So the more that we can do beforehand, the better outcomes we have for our residents and the better outcomes we have for budgets. And this isn't being budget led either. It's about preventative. It's about giving people good opportunities, a greater well-being, and more access to activities, support, well-being provision, that sort of thing. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy. Happy with that, Councillor Davis?
Yeah, just to say, I'm more reassured. I'm echoing again, I'm more reassured, Chair, and prevention's always better than cure. Thank you.
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you. Moving on, I did have Councillor Amanda Williams down for a question. Do you want to come in on 3.1, or do you want to tie it in with your question later? No, I think that's a tie it in later.
Apologies, yeah, I couldn't remember which question it was then.
Do you want to come in now, or do you want to come in later?
I'll come in later when I work out which question it was I was asking here.
That's fine. It was about schools and A-levels and colleges and things, just as an aid.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can come in now if you want.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. My question was, and I think I've raised this with Claire Marchant before, this report goes on about what we're doing with colleges to increase social workers and also carers. And I raised a question before about schools because I've got a son who's just been choosing his A-level options, and I was surprised to see that social work was there as an A-level, and that the school also does a GCSE. So I was wondering what we can do to work with these schools, particularly as all the schools are going to be choosing their A-levels now, and then very shortly the GCSEs, how we can get into schools as soon as possible and work with schools to encourage individuals to take up these courses, so that we will hopefully have an increase in those being coming into social work and also care, please.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Yeah, following the sort of previous conversation that we had in a committee around this, we're building this into our workforce priorities systematically now, because we have done work with schools, and from time to time our social care workforce development team have gone into schools to talk about opportunities in social care, but dare I say it's been a little bit ad hoc. dependent on how enthusiastic the individual school or head of courses in that particular school. So we need this to be systematic. Jackie referenced the age of our workforce. It's quite scary, actually, in terms of the proportion of our workforce in care roles who are over 55. So we need to be getting into schools as well as Bridgend College early, giving people opportunities to have that really clear pathway through into caring roles for both social care roles and in terms of direct care and the career development opportunities there, and then raising awareness around social work. We have been on the back foot, I would say, when we compare to health professionals, when we compare to teaching, in terms of people really understanding what social work is, the fact it's got a fantastic starting salary when you compare to other parts of the public sector that might be considered comparable posts, and the fact it is really a job and career for life. So yes, that's a priority for us. We've just recruited this week a new workforce officer to support all of our workforce programmes, and that's going to be one of their priorities in post, systematically getting those programmes in place with schools.
Lovely, thank you. Does that answer the question for you, Amanda? Councillor Williams?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Moving on over on page 6, I believe if Councillor Richard Williams would like to come in on this one, and then I'll bring Councillor Amanda Williams in on it. So Councillor Richard Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is regarding dementia rates. With dementia rates increasing so quickly and the resources required to support and assist, could you tell me what impact the new dementia unit in Park Prison is having on these figures and at what cost? Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to take that? Carmel?
So just a comment first on dementia rates. Obviously, we've got an ageing older adult population, and with that comes an increased prevalence of dementia in our population. So we will inevitably have to plan for the projected figures we are seeing. One of our duties is to prevent and delay people coming to care services, and you've heard us talk a lot about preemptive early intervention, and our focus at this point in time is on living well with dementia. People live for quite long periods orientated to their home and local community and place. And we, as you are aware, have had a long thrust in Bridgend around being a dementia-friendly community and a dementia-supportive community. And I think during the pandemic, perhaps some of that has had less emphasis, but we will be revisiting that and working to enhance that, because clearly the figures indicate, we have a larger population of people living with dementia coming. In terms of Park Prison, the unit is actually an initiative by the Health Board. I don't know whether members are aware, the Health Board have recently taken over the healthcare within the prison from a private provider. We're really encouraged by that, because obviously we have a very strong and long working partnership relationship with the Health Board in terms of the care and support that people will get once they are there. Lawfully, people who are resident in Park Prison are in terms of care and support, are the responsibility of the council. So we have a team, a social work team within Park Prison, as well as some occupational therapy support, and we provide the care and support within the prison. So we would be looking to strengthen our collaborative arrangements. But in terms of the actual unit, that is initiative by the University Health Board.
Thank you. Deputy Leader, can I bring you in, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. I suppose what I wanted to say was we've raised the costs of actual care in Park Prison with the Minister herself, because there are queries around the way funding arrangements are for local authorities. And I suppose what I would say is it's very difficult to get staff to work in the prison. We can't just use the average, and I mean that with the greatest of respect, the average care worker that we use out in our communities. There are significant further security checks and arrangements that need to be made, and that increases the cost somewhat. So it is something that we have picked up as Cabinet. I have written a letter, When I have a response, I will share it with all members. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Richard Williams?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Fantastic. Councillor Amanda Williams, I believe you had a question as well. Can I bring you in, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. My question was, is the package of care more complex with dementia patients, and are we seeing an increase in them requiring placements in care homes? Thanks.
Who would like to take that one?
Apologies for not putting my camera on before. So in terms of the cost of dementia care, again, this can vary depending on needs, and the effects of dementia present in very different ways depending on the individual circumstances, the types of dementia, whether people are co-residently living with partners or family, or whether they are living alone. So there's lots of things that impact on the cost of dementia services. We, the whole in principle thing about preventing and delaying placements is something that we would not discriminate against people because they are living with dementia. But we have had some, through some of the regional funding, we have invested in having a multi-professional dementia service that is looking to support people with more complicated needs who formerly would have gone more early into hospital or into placements by working with families collaboratively, working with the individuals on how to manage and support people who present with more complicated needs. In reality, how we choose to fund and support people will depend on very much their individual circumstances and what matters to that family and how resilient they are in supporting that person and their own resilience, if you like, and safety. So social workers work very closely with families on making those decisions. In terms of the straightforward question, whether it costs more to support people in dementia care, the answer is yes.
Thank you. Does that answer the question for you, Councillor Williams?
Yes, thank you very much.
Lovely. Moving on, 3.11, Councillor Paul Davis, I believe you had a question on this, please.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Let me get my camera on. Yes, Chair. It says in 3.11, Chair, there's 97 individuals waiting for a short and long-term care at home. And it says the bottom line that there's not enough sufficient care worker capacity to support them in their own home. Is that the only reason they're not discharged from hospital, Chair? You've and I've heard anecdotally, that it's adaptations to the property, that sort of thing, which keeps people in hospital. Is it only the care worker issue, or are there other issues involved in that, please?
Thank you. Do you want to come in?
Yes, thanks, Chair. What we've highlighted in this report are just those that are waiting for care. At any one time, there is a list of discharges that are waiting to come out of the hospital. Some could be adaptation, some could be housing. There's a whole range of reasons that we have people on a list waiting to be discharged. The 97 only relates to care. Yeah.
Yeah, that's clear, Chair. Thank you.
Lovely. Just very quickly, as well as a supplementary to that, do we know if the 97 as a figure, is it higher or lower post-COVID as we are now? Do we know that?
It's much higher than pre-COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. This also relates to. This goes into paragraph. Chair, this is also linked to paragraph 2 on page 10 as well, isn't it? This.
It does. I'm glad you managed to spit that out. Yes, it does.
I meant to say.
No, that's fine. That's not a problem. Right, moving down the page. Can I bring in Councillor Paula Ford, please, for 4.3? Sorry, apologies. Councillor Gebbe, did you want to come in on the previous point? Sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
Sorry, I do beg your pardon. Second one of the morning. I suppose it's just to reassure members somewhat. One of the reasons you'll hear me talk about step up, step down beds and reablement is because people are sitting in beds in hospital where they don't actually need very heavy nursing care. And the sooner we can move them from that scenario, the better it is for our health board colleagues, I suppose is what I want to say. And there are a wide range of reasons. If somebody goes into hospital because they've had a TIA, a stroke, essentially, then they might need their door frames widening to be able to get back into their house. So there's all manner of things, and I think that's just a good example. It's not necessarily just about the care. There's a whole range of reasons. Thanks very much.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Ford, can I bring you in on 4.3, please? I believe you had a question.
Yes, good morning. I'm sorry, my camera's not working, so you'll have to just put up with my voice. It is my understanding that BCBC pay domiciliary care staff from the start to the end of their shift, which includes any travelling time between calls. However, some independent sector companies only pay for the time of the call with no travelling time, and also can take a few months to pay out any mileage claims. Could BCBC use this information to promote and encourage more people away from the private sector? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Who would like to take that?
I will, Chair. Thanks very much. I think we need to rebalance the market somewhat in relation to our independent providers and in-house support. There are various reasons why I think that. I do believe that we provide more of the complex care arrangements in-house, and we know that the more care that we're delivering, the more complex the needs are of our residents. I disagree. I disagree. So this is a political determination, so I'm putting it out there. I don't like independent provision, particularly when they don't pay them in between hours. If I'm supposed to be available between the hours of work of 7 till 2, as an example, then I should be paid between those hours of 7 and 2, other than a lunchtime break. We do need to keep our independent provision as well out there. They're quite often supportive of us, but I would just like some of the arrangements to be changed. However, Welsh Government are very insistent on part of our commissioning arrangements. Everybody has to be paid certain amounts. They have to be paid for their travel time now, and that's a much better position than 5 years ago when we were contracting independent domiciliary provision. It used to be that they weren't paid appropriately, they didn't get appropriate travel time, and they certainly didn't get paid for anything in between. So that's something we're very clear about when we commission services as a continuum now. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Did you want to come in, Director?
I think just a couple of things for me, if I may, from a professional perspective. One is to say, I suppose, to you as councillors, that there are always choices to be made, and just to make you aware, the unit cost of providing the service in-house is higher, and that would need to be reflected in the budget agreed by council if there was a rebalance in Bridgend. As the deputy leader has said, it is the law that people should be paid for travel time in undertaken as part of their work, and if there's any individual cases which members are aware that's not the case, I think we'd like them offline, obviously, to advise us of that in terms of us following that up with any commissioned providers. I think, again, just from a professional perspective, we've been pushing as ADSS Cymru for national terms and conditions for care workers. So we recognise the excellent progress that's been made in terms of moving to real living wage, but we also recognise we're in a very competitive market in the foundation economy with other sectors such as retail and hospitality, particularly, who are able to respond to market forces and actually advertise non-regulated jobs at higher wages than that if the market dictates. And we've certainly, from a professional perspective, been pressing for us to be able to go beyond real living wage in Wales.
Lovely, thank you. Does that answer the question for you, Councillor Ford?
Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, Councillor, sorry, Jackie Davis, would you like to come in?
I just wanted to add to that, if that was okay. In the report in 4.1, it's very clear that that on average 80% of the hours that we provide on a weekly basis is provided by the independent sector. So it's a significant figure for us. But we also have a duty under the Social Services and Wellbeing Act around market stability as well. And part of the work that we do constantly is to ensure that we've got the market and it's safe in terms of, you know, trying to deliver the service. So.
Thank you. That's actually a really interesting addition on that. Councillor Amanda Williams, I know that you did have a question, but I think your question has actually been answered. Are you happy with that as well?
Yes, thanks. I just wanted it on record that BCBC pays staff for the amount of hours they work, and because I think in the general public there's been a lot of rumours, and I think if we can set the record straight, we might encourage more people into care, into those roles. Thanks.
Agreed. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Gebby?
Thank you very much. I wouldn't disagree with Councillor Williams. So there's a couple of measures that we've taken to encourage people to apply for us directly. One of those things is we've got an alternative pilot going on at the minute in relation to hours. We want people to be able to work the hours that are suitable for them and their families. I think that's the one thing we would say. And also, when you're applying for a position here now, like you were all informed yesterday, if you attended the members training, we have a specific officer. So you no longer have to ring the normal switchboard. You contact a dedicated officer who will direct you to the appropriate person to speak to in relation to any position. And I also think there's a political discussion around, for a long time, we've devalued our care provision. So whether you want to call them home care, whether you want to call them domiciliary, whether that's reablement, we professionalised the service, but we didn't professionalise their pay. And it's something I'm very clear on politically, is we cannot expect people to go out there and do a job if we do not pay them appropriately for a professional service. And you don't have to be registered as a professional to scan food at a checkout. I'm not disputing the value to everybody goes into the supermarket as an example. However, if we are expecting our workforce to be that professional, to be that dedicated, we need to ensure that their pay and their terms and conditions are professional too.
Thank you. Happy with that, Amanda? Councillor Williams?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Moving on, page 7. I believe I'm bringing Councillor Amanda Williams back in again, so I don't know if you want to go for your question here.
Apologies, I'm flitting between screens. Yeah,
No,
my question here was on the DBS and the delays in getting a DBS. I think it's Powys that do BCBC's DBS. I've had a few of them recently for different roles. Is there a way that we could potentially speed up these DBS requests, or are we bound by others in this process? Thanks.
I'll take that too, if that's okay. Okay, so there's a couple of things to note here in terms of DBS. There isn't a particular problem with DBS as such in terms of the system and the way that the system works. Sometimes there are delays because of the person's circumstances. So just as an example, if somebody's moved house several times and has had several different roles, then that will take longer for the checks to take place. So it's those that we're referring to here, as opposed to a systemic issue with DBSs in the totality.
Thank you. Does that answer the question for you, Councillor Williams?
Yes, thank you.
Lovely. Moving down the page, I'm going to bring Councillor Maxine Lewis in, please.
Thank you, Chair. Noting the benefits that are available to care staff, and I understand it's 50 pence a mile they get paid on for driving between clients. What about people who don't drive? Is there any, are they able to get bus passes, or is there anything there for those? Because I think there's a lot of people you could bring into the job if you gave them a bus pass. Because the village I live in, there's 2 villages in 2 miles, and I know one girl starts in one village, goes up to the next village. She does that twice a day, but she walks there. That's a hell of a walk twice a day.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Can I bring the Deputy Leader in, please?
You can do. We do have staff. It used to be the position that we didn't employ staff if they didn't have their own car because they couldn't get around the whole of the county borough. So we disagree with that. We think people should be able to be walkers, and you might find that that's the determination that she's made in relation to her provision. We don't mind if you're a walker. Quite often we do patch-based rounds now, so they would be kept in the locality that they live in so that they can walk to clients. That actually reassures us somewhat as well when we have walkers on our books, so to speak, because in times of crisis, so if we have a significant snowfall, as an example, we can't get there. So to know that we have walkers on the patch that live in that locality means that we know our residents are safe and secure and somebody can get to them if all else fails. So it's just some reassurance. And there's also we do all sorts of things now. So one of the things that people can do if they haven't got access to a car themselves, lots of people are drivers, they don't necessarily maintain a car themselves now. We have a provision where we're able to assist and support in that regard as well. So just to reassure members. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that answer your question for you, Councillor Lewis?
Yes, thank you.
Lovely. Can I just ask a very quick question, though? Because I understand the reasoning behind walkers and doing a walking round, etc. But where somebody is walking from one valley to the next and you know, going quite some distance as well between calls, is there not a capacity issue there where they could indeed be helped with a bus pass and helped to not speed up the round that they're doing, but actually put more people into their round as well, so we get to see more individuals? Would that be something that would be a thought? Because I totally understand about the modal shifts, and I get that, and it is good that we do have walkers on the round, but also as well, equally, perhaps a bus pass in that regard might help with that.
If a member of staff wanted a bus pass, that would be facilitated for them, because members of staff, so if you're a driver, you're able to claim mileage. If all you can do is catch a bus, you'd be able to reclaim your bus ticket.
Lovely, thank you. Cheers. Moving on, I actually have a question further down page 7 as well. Oh, sorry, do you want to come back in, Claire?
Oh, only really quickly, it's just a chance to advertise something, really. We've got a grant from Welsh Government to support people who want to take driving lessons or to be supported to take their driving test to come into care. And just to highlight that, if anybody knows anybody who would love that, and that's one of the things when we had this recruitment fair yesterday up in my stag, we really wanted to promote, because employability colleagues who were supporting that said to us this would open access to a whole new workforce for us. So yeah, that's a real one to get out there on the comms.
Definitely, that's a real bonus actually. So I'm glad that you've mentioned that. Moving on, further down the page, we've got in the bullet points, paying IDC providers an extra £1 per hour from August 2020 to March 2023. Just a very quick question, because we're heading up to March 2023. Is there provision for that to continue? And also as well, with obviously the cost of living crisis and everything increasing in price, is £1 per hour going to be sufficient on that, please? Thank you.
So Chair, we're taking a paper to Corporate Management Board around the uplift in the domiciliary care contracts for next year. You know, it's linked to the CPI, linked to inflation. There's just been national rates, which the National Commission Board have looked to encourage local authorities to provide. So I won't give an exact answer now, but certainly that paper will be considered very shortly by the Corporate Management Board.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. I think we're jumping the gun a little bit there for you then. No worries. Right, turning the page, page 8, I have Councillor Paul Davis, please.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair. Chair, the committee read with interest paragraph 2 here, where it states that the Health Board does not face the same recruitment challenges as the Council. You know, all the reports I see that this recruitment issue is sort of across the board. councils and health boards, you know, and I know it's maybe they talk about nurses and doctors more on the health board, but is that actually correct that they don't face the same pressures as BCBC when it comes to recruitment?
Thank you. I believe we have Vicky Wallace on the call still, so I just wondered if I could bring her in first and then come back to yourself, if that's okay. Yeah.
Yes, no problem. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. So you're right, we do still face recruitment issues. I think, you know, across health and social care as an absolute workforce is, probably one, if not the biggest challenge, really. But I think what we're trying to say is around some of the some specific jobs and job bands, because the NHS terms and conditions can be seen as being favourable to local authority. It can be more of an attractive thing. So what we're trying to do here is if we recruit on our terms and conditions and then under section 33 they work as part of the local authority, it can help in regards to this is specifically in regards to domiciliary care.
Right.
So it isn't around anything wider. We are trying this in regards to domiciliary care, and we're going to be working with the other local authorities as well to do the same to hopefully help them in their recruitment challenges as well.
Can I just clarify something here, Chair? So someone who works for you under section 33, you said that those conditions would transfer over if they'd done any work for BCBC. Is that what you're saying?
So what I'm saying is we employ them on our terms and conditions, but they work under your governance arrangements under the section 33 agreement. Right, so they would work for you as as BCBC, but we would recruit them. And this has been, we're trying this. Again, it may not work because it's something we're trying, but we're trying it because we've seen it work elsewhere and it's been beneficial for local authorities elsewhere. So we thought we'd try it.
And in that scenario, you don't have any recruitment issues, or you have some recruitment issues, but not as bad as the BCBC recruitment issues. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what we've seen where it's been done elsewhere is the NHS has been able to recruit. Not sure easy is the right word, but they have been able to recruit additional workers where the local authorities haven't. So this is something that we're doing at the moment. I've got a meeting with Jackie next week to take some of these conversations forward a bit more. But it's a case of we're trying something different to see if it is something that will have an impact, because we've seen that elsewhere it has worked for those local authorities.
Well, anything that helps can't be argued against. Thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you very much. Councillor Gebby.
Thank you very much. So I'd highlight to Councillor Davis my comments earlier around the professionalisation of, or the deprofessionalisation, I want to say, of home care, domiciliary care. One of the things that we found is it's a status. So if you work for the health board, your status is considerably better than that of a domiciliary care worker, is what we want to say. And I think I'd highlight a couple of things around that. So if you're an assistant, so a nurse assistant in the hospital, you are not allowed to give or dispense any medication in any shape or any form. If you're a domiciliary care worker, it's quite expectant of you to go into somebody's house and to give them medication, signing it off on it. So I can't remember the name of the form now. Marchart. So, which is issued by the chemist. So we already know that there's that imbalance somewhat. But it is seen as a status. So if you work for the health board, people think that you've got a higher status arrangement than you have if you work for local government. So I said that we've professionalised a service, but we've deprofessionalised their pay. This is a prime example of that, Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Are you happy with that, Councillor Davis?
Yes, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. I think Councillor Amanda Williams might have had a question on this as well. I don't know if you want to come in.
Thanks very much. I think it's mostly been answered because I'm one of the representatives on the Community Health Council, which is ending for the beginning of April, and we've got the new LICE coming into force. So it was just to seek assurance that there is working between social services and the health board, but I think that's been answered in the in all of the answers that have been given today, that there is something going forward where both are working together on this.
Lovely, thank you. Did you want to come in further down the page as well? I think you had a question that might have been linked elsewhere, or did you ask that previously?
I think Jackie Davis wanted to come in a minute on what I just said.
Apologies.
That's okay. I just wanted to reassure members that we've got a long history of integration and working with health and social care employees, working alongside each other under joint management arrangements. So this would just be enhancing what we've already got, really. So Michelle talked earlier about therapy-led programmes of work with individuals, and it would just support all of that again. So it's an additionality as opposed to, but it is something that's being driven from Welsh Government as well. So
thank you. That's always interesting to note where it's been driven from. So thank you. Moving on, page 9. Do we have any questions on page 9? Councillor Richard Williams.
Thank you, Chair. It's 4.7, is that all right? 84 individuals are currently waiting in the community with no package of care. What hours does this equate to for provision? That's the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Who would like to take that?
I will take that if I can, because I think I've managed to pull up the current situation. So this is as at the week commencing the 13th of February, so it's slightly different figures to the figures that you would have had relating to the report. So as at the end of last week, there were 41 people waiting in the community for packages of care, and that equated to 305 hours of care. Of those people waiting in the community, I should have said that 19 people had no current care package, and the average wait for them was 43 days.
Lovely, thank you. Does that answer the question for you, Councillor Williams, Richard Williams?
Yes, more or less. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Amanda Williams, can I bring you in?
Thanks. On the back of that, does this mean those individuals who are receiving no care package, have we got any concerns about them because there is no care for them and yet we've determined that they require care? Thanks.
okay, so if you recall, when I did the introduction, what I said is that we very actively manage those waiting lists, and people are reviewing those waiting lists. People are getting phone calls. Those that are deemed at high risk, social workers are going out and doing reassessments of them. There are individuals that are being supported by different professionals, so like therapy techs, a number of different things. So people aren't on a waiting list, and then we don't have any contact with them until the care comes available. So we are actively managing those lists, and as well as the individuals and their carers. So yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Amanda Williams?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Williams, is that a legacy hand? Lovely, thank you. Moving on.
Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on. I believe Councillor Eugene Kaparis has a question at 4.12. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, looking at the number of social workers who've been leaving, it's obviously quite an issue for the council. There's lots of them. I know you're trying to hire more back into backfill. Can you tell us why this is? Is it just the general age of the employees? Are they suffering burnout as a result of the work? And are we conducting, if we don't know those answers, are we conducting exit interviews to find out?
I think it would be fair to say it's a combination of that, and that we are in an extremely competitive market for professionally registered social workers along the M4 corridor. I think, the cost of living crisis is inevitably impacting on choices people are making. We do have some people leaving for retirement, but the reality facing all local authorities across, particularly across the M4 corridor, is that in a mobile, hybrid working environment. People are making choices that they feel are best for their families in this scenario. We are good at retaining people in adult services, and we have people who are very committed to Bridgend, and we have not seen as much of that drift. This is new for us. I've got to be honest, I think this is a new trend we haven't experienced before. In terms of routinely doing exit interviews, I know our colleagues in children's are doing that routinely now, and it is something we're looking at in adult services, but we haven't fully implemented.
Lovely. Does that answer the question for you, Councillor Kaparos?
Yes, thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you. Moving on to page 11, I believe Councillor Amanda Williams has a question at 4.13. Thank you. Councillor Williams?
I'm just trying to recall what that question was.
About the 170 unallocated social work cases.
Oh, right. Yep, sorry.
No worries, that's fine.
I've got so many questions on my list. I'm just trying to pick them all out. I'm glad you've got them all documented in order. Yes, it was just on the number of unallocated cases, and similar to the care outstanding, I was just wondering if this poses a risk at all, if there are any concerns about some of these individuals who are requiring their case a social worker. Does that pose a risk to individuals? Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So as with the care, the waiting lists are actively managed by senior managers and team managers in each of those areas, really. So the average waiting day is around 20 days for a social work allocation at the moment. What I said is that every individual on that list, we have a RAG status with that: red, amber and green. And as I said, anything that's heading towards the red is allocated immediately based on priority needs. At the moment, this is managed, we've got a series of actions in relation to this waiting list that's managed under the Silver Command that we talked about. What we've done in the last 10 days is that we've allocated 2 of our team managers, and we've brought in some additional social workers, and they're going to proactively manage the list slightly differently to how we've done previously. I can say that this is a top priority for us in the service. We've got a duty system in each of the teams, and our duty officers are in regular contact with these individuals. And as I said, in our integrated teams, we've got a range of professionals, and individuals will be talked about in weekly meetings, and it could be that other professionals go out and provide a level of support while we're waiting for the full assessment. So those of you that are on the members training yesterday, where we talked about proportionate assessments, those can be done at any time, and obviously some of the cases we talked about yesterday, really, we would intervene straight away. So yeah.
Does that answer the question for you, Councillor Williams?
It does, and I was at the training yesterday, so I was reassured yesterday. But the fact that this is a public report, I just think to just give the public the peace of mind that it's all under control. Thanks.
Absolutely. So moving on, any further questions on page 11, please, councillors? Any on page 12? Any on page 13? I think it was noted in the meeting that 8.4 has been quite well rehearsed with the grants, so we don't need to go back over that ground again. And if that is all, and there are no questions further from the councillors on the report, can I just bring us to Appendix 1, please, very quickly, and just ask if there's any criteria for each of the flows into the amber and the red, because there doesn't seem to be any sort of context on that. If we could just have a bit with that, thank you. Please.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So this piece of work is based on the Health Board's escalation criteria. So we wanted to be able to match the level of focus and activity that happens in the Health Board as capacity and escalation levels change and increase. We want to be able to release management capacity to be able to focus on hospital discharge and support our hospital colleagues as well. So that escalation criteria there is just based on how the hospital works their escalation levels.
Thank you. Did you want to come in, Jackie? No, I saw you touching your button. I didn't know if you wanted to. No, thank you very much. That's very good. Bear with me 1 second. Right then. Councillor Richard Williams, can I bring you in, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question, really, about Appendix 1. I just wondered how often the black level business continuity status is actually called.
I could take that, but I don't know if Vicky wanted to respond as well from the Health Board. So calling black or going into business continuity is quite a significant thing for a Health Board to do, and sometimes it's done about particular sites as well. So Princess of Wales predominantly is the one that we're involved with. Up until the pandemic, and actually through the pandemic, it was a very rare occurrence. I would say that probably the last 3 months it's been more frequently than I've known in probably my whole career. So it has been quite a few times in the last couple of weeks.
Thank you. Can I bring Victoria in, please?
Yeah. I don't know the exact numbers, but as Jackie said, it is more frequent. But I guess I would like to reassure councillors that it's not something that is taken lightly. We do everything as a health board to mitigate any risks through the other levels to prevent that happening. So, for example, when that does happen, because it does impact on the wider work of the hospital. So, for example, stopping specific elective operations and things like that. So it's not something that is done without it actually really needing to happen. But I couldn't tell you unfortunately how many exactly it's happened, but it as Jackie said, it has happened more frequently recently.
Is it at all possible for you to come back with those figures perhaps and send those to members on the committee? Would that be possible?
I will. So you sorry.
No, that's
specific. So in specific to Princess of Wales.
Yes, please. And yeah. if we could break it down for the last 12, 6 and 3 months, that would be ideal if possible.
I will ask the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Claire, can I bring you in, please?
Yeah, just briefly to say, I think this escalation policy is really important for us and that it mirrors the Health Board. Councillor Gebby referenced earlier the Wales Audit Office, or Audit Wales as they know, our review of unscheduled care pressures. It's one of the things that in earlier interviews, as part of that review, they're a bit challenging around that joint escalation, and the fact that it is now in place, I think it's really important because it's a whole system response always that's needed.
Thank you. Does that answer the question for you, Councillor Richard Williams?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would be grateful for the figures.
Yeah, lovely. I think that's a very good question to have asked, so thank you very much. Moving on, if there are no further questions from members, and I can't see any hands up, I'm going to thank the invitees for coming down and speaking to us. And if you're not required for the next report, feel free to leave. Thank you very much. I'm going to call a short break as well. I'm going to have a quick 10-minute break between this meeting and the next to get our invitees in for the next one as well. So thank you very much. I'll be back at, if we say 1:45, that'd be fine. Thank you.